Even the cumulative sound of their tiny wings is like a storm. With only 6 to 12 hours of life after rising to the surface of the lake, the flies have but a single purpose: to mate before they die. Their entire development, designed for a few climactic hours, the flies spread their wings in mating flight. Then, spent, they fall again to the surface of the lake, where the voracious tilapia and other fish await them. Today, near Jinja, a series of watery stairways mark the point where in 1862, a young British colonial officer, John Hanning Speke, first sighted Ripon Falls and determined that Lake Victoria was the major source of the Nile. Though disputed long after his accidental death, his discovery remains secure. But the Ripon Falls are all but drowned by the dam, which now regulates the flow from the lake. Landing in quieter waters downstream from Lake Victoria, the airborne travelers make rendezvous with members of the overland team. Leaving the Catalina at anchor, the Cousteaus set out by caravan across Uganda's primitive backcountry, still alive with one of the world's last great assemblies of wild animals.
Year by year, with growing haste, Africa strides out of an ancient world into the present. Still, as we move through these open savannas, I feel myself almost a stranger, a tourist in another time. Most of us who have been brought up in the so-called developed countries have seen these animals only in zoos. Here, in their native habitat, I feel that I am returning to some storybook period in the history of life, visiting the images of a childhood we ourselves no longer remember. For these animals, these infinitely varied inventions of nature still convey to us a sense of the miraculous. In a world that encourages uniformity, that judges values by their utility, perhaps these animals, like so many of their kind, also are doomed to disappear in favor of some more commercially useful species. Yet I cannot avoid a bitter sense of loss that we, born to a world that still held these creatures, are being robbed of a priceless inheritance, a life that welcomes diversity, not sameness, that treasures astonishment and wonder instead of boredom.
Deadly huntress, the lioness does not always make her kill. In the bush, even the vehicles falter. The good-natured local inhabitants sometimes wind up pushing them. Led by Philippe, the team moves on. With Dominique Soumian and a camera crew, he leaves the Catalina to search for the island refuge of a creature whose numbers constitute 1/5 of all living mammal species, the bat. Protected by the river's torrent from natives who eat them, a great colony of the flying mammals here festoons the branches of the trees. Hanging in untidy clusters, awaiting nightfall, the fox-faced bats stir uneasily, quick to quarrel. At last, as twilight approaches, the bat population comes to life. A fruit-eating species, they will spend the night foraging for bananas, mangoes, pineapples, and other fruits, sometimes threatening the crops of farmers and commercial growers. Near daybreak, with an unsteady rush of wings, the bats return. Glutted, they gather once more upon the branches, sometimes bend them down almost to breaking. As the night foragers hang in sleep, other hunters awaken in the dawn. Across the still waters, Ugandan fishermen strike the surface, trying to frighten the fish into their nets. Near shore waits the patient shadow of another formidable hunter, the marabou stork. Aboard the Catalina also, life begins to stir. Atop the waist of the craft, protected by netting against the attack of insects, Dominique has found a cool and private berth, safely aloof from the mundane chores below. As a standard precaution against parasitic organisms endemic in some sections of the Nile basin, the water is carefully filtered and boiled. Otherwise, Philippe and his companions might be breakfasting in the dining room of a well-staffed hotel.
King rice.
Across the surface of the lake, a string of pelicans also arrives to consider the day's menu. Oblivious both to the team's rubber raft and to the hippos lazing in the lake, the pelicans are perfectly mannered guests, catching their fish in flawless unison.